Shane, really good to see you. I have an important question today. What happens if I die without a will? Despite potentially devastating consequences, I was surprised to learn that 54% of Americans don't have a will, leaving estate planning up to a complicated range of state laws. So, who needs a will? A lot of us assume they're for the very wealthy, but even 1 in 5 Americans with a million or more doesn't have a will.
Erin, good to see you. Yeah, talking about wills, talking about trust, we really find that so many people think, oh, it's not for me, I don't need it. But that's really just not the truth. And here's why. In the state of Arizona, if you die without a will, die without a trust in particular, you're going to be subject to what's called probate. So if you have any amount of assets, particularly real estate, home, second home, rental home, that you just can't afford to let go into that probate process, get dragged into that very public, time-consuming, expensive process, then a will and a trust is probably for you.
Also, if you die without a will, your loved ones may get nothing, especially if they are unmarried partners or stepchildren who are left out under the law in almost every scenario.
Right. So dying without a will in particular is something that can be pretty ugly. And even dying with a will itself is still something that exposes you to the process of probate. And that's why we talk a lot of times with folks about getting a living trust to avoid that whole concept of probate. So dying without a will at all leaves you subject to pretty much a public decision-making process on how to split up your assets. And most people don't want courts and public groups deciding what to do with their assets. So a will helps to give some guidelines, say, I want my assets to go to these people in this manner. But what a will is really is a guarantee of probate. And probate is the process of authenticating that will in a public court proceeding and saying, okay, here's the will. Let's go through it and make sure that it's accurate. So the person that created the will wanted this asset to go to this person. Do we agree? Do we think that's going to happen? Does anyone have any objections? That sort of thing. That's how it goes. And that's why probate can be so long, so arduous, cost a lot of money, and really leave the door open for a lot of issues. When we're talking about living trusts, on the other hand, they differ from wills in that everything moves on without any question. The trust doesn't die, it just transfers to the next generation. That's why they're so powerful in that you avoid that probate process. There's no real decision about who gets what in particular item. You just name successor trustees, and it really makes it a lot easier for folks.
And this is why you have a list of tips here for everyone. Number one is know your state's laws because Arizona is a little bit muddy here.
Right. Like I said, in the state of Arizona, a will is simply a guarantee of that probate process, which, if you've heard lately, it can take up to years, especially during all the COVID time. The courts were so backed up. We heard a couple stories of it taking literally years to get completed. In reality, it's probably 6 months to a year for most situations. That's probate. That's verifying that will. And that's why it's still kind of a messy process. But a trust, again, living trusts avoid all that. Yeah, they're going to be a little bit more expensive to get in place, but really it's worth it in the long run because there's no attorneys that have to get involved. There's no need for legal fees. And it just transfers from one generation to the next without a whole lot of questions.
And the second tip here is making sure all your assets are covered.
Yeah, it's important to work with an estate planning attorney and an advisor that can help you make sure that all your assets are actually in that trust or are stated in that will, right? So let's say you have property, primary residence, second home, rental home, other asset accounts, 401ks, IRAs. You want to make sure that those are all properly set up either in the trust or with beneficiary designations to make sure that they transfer to that next generation seamlessly and that everything's set up so you can have that peace of mind and know I took care of business, everything's good to go, and I don't have to worry about this stuff.
So important. And last, don't delay. A lot of us do hesitate though, because this can bring up a lot of complex family dynamics.
It can, right? Who gets what, brothers and sisters not agreeing, but it's something you really don't want to put off because the later in life you get, the harder it will really get to do this. You might not be in a position one day to create a trust or to create a will. And so if you can get it in place now, that's really going to be in your best interest. It's amazing how many people think, oh, I'll just do it later, I'll do it another time, but you really just don't want to do that. And part of my job is to encourage people to just take that action, take care of business, and really get that peace of mind now that you've been looking for.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. It's all about peace of mind. Shane, this makes a lot of sense, especially considering your state's laws. If somebody has questions about creating a will or a trust, what's the best way to reach you?
Best way to reach us is by calling us or visiting our website. Our phone number is 602-456-1928, or visit us online at winstonandcompanies.com. We'd be glad to have a little talk with you and talk more about what it looks like to get a trust, how the process works, and so on. So looking forward to visiting with some folks.
Great. Shane, thank you.
Thanks, Erin.